Welcome to the podcast, Super Intelligent listeners. My name is Mike Elgin, and my co-host, Emily Forlini, is not with us today. She is water skiing behind her yacht in Ibiza. I'm slaving away here in the most serene Republic of Venice, and coming to you from basically a really cool apartment in a vaguely fashionable district of the island. So I'm here today to talk about something I've noticed in people I talk to online, which is the problem of AI addiction. And I'm not talking about the kind of AI addiction where, we read about in the paper, like Sewell Setzer, who is a 14-year-old who became addicted to a Daenerys Targaryen character on Character AI. I'm not talking about Eugene Torres, who my friend Kashmir Hill reported in New York Times last summer, who got into, basically came down with AI psychosis. I'm not talking about other people who've committed suicide or had all these problems. I'm talking about good old-fashioned power users. I'm talking about people who are using AI to vibe code, using AI to learn things, using AI to discover things, and just can't stop doing it. OpenAI, in fact, did a study with MIT and found a whole bunch of power users that displayed classic addiction symptoms, things like preoccupation, withdrawal symptoms, a loss of control, moodiness, those kinds of things. You may have met these kinds of power users. They don't want to talk about anything else except how they use AI. They can't wait to get back to using AI. Some of the people who are addicted to AI are kind of famous or prominent people. Andrej Karpathy, I think is how you say his name. He's one of the co-founders of OpenAI. He's like such a vibe coder that he spends about 16 hours a day vibe coding. He basically used to do his own coding. Then for a while, he did about 80% of his own coding with 20% AI-generated code. And now it's 100% AI-generated code. He can't stop. Gary Tan, the CEO of Y Combinator, calls his own state of mind cyberpsychosis. He wrote recently that he stayed up 19 hours and didn't fall asleep till 5 a.m. and kind of bragging about it, that he's such a AI addict. Let's see, an AI developer and blogger named Simon Willison talked about how it's very easy to slip into a state of mind where agentic coding is more important than sleep, and basically just keep working at it until you're just exhausted to the point of passing out, essentially. This is a real problem. In some cases, it's like a dirty secret, like people secretly feel this addiction. In other cases, people kind of know they're addicted. They are aware of the fact that they're super enthusiastic about using AI for different things, and really want to talk about nothing else sometimes. And then there are the Tokenmaxxers. Tokenmaxxers are like people who use AI excessively and then kind of brag about it. So they go on X and they talk about how many tokens they burned up, basically vibe coding or doing something else with AI. Even this week, Wired magazine published an essay by Alessandra Ram talking about, it's called Meet the Sad Wives of AI. And she talks about how her husband does nothing but use AI late into the night. And then when he's not using AI, it's the only thing he wants to talk about. And therefore, she is a sad wife. And also notice that this phenomenon exists elsewhere. If you're familiar with my columns, I write a lot about the attachment economy, which is where companies deliberately make robots and AI be more human to deliberately make you feel emotionally attached to their product, so that you'll favor their products, you'll pay their monthly fee and all that kind of stuff. And I'm not talking about that today. I'm not talking about those kinds of people. I'm talking about the kind of power user that is addicted because of dopamine-driven feedback loops. The feeling that they get an instant personalized response it gives people a rush. The sense of accomplishment when people are doing things that they're not normally able to do. For example, a developer who's suddenly able to do marketing and IT and build a website and basically start a company without a co-founder. I'm talking about marketing people who can now do code. I'm talking about inventors who can build demos. I'm talking about people who can do all kinds of things that they've always wanted to do, and now they feel like they can do it and have an enormous sense of accomplishment having done it or having at least directed AI to do it. And this is an addiction for multiple reasons. People would rather do the vibe coding or rather use AI than do things like sleep, as I mentioned, or do other activities, interact with other people, do the things that used to give them pleasure, like, play golf or whatever their hobby is. But also there's a chemical element, the dopamine reaction to the rush of, the rush of chemicals into the brain that provide a chemical reward for the behaviors around using AI. It's no secret that technology-oriented people who spend a lot of time with computers and who spend a lot of time doing very smart things can find human beings somewhat frustrating in their lack of logic, the time it takes for them to answer, the fact that they don't know a lot of things, and find interacting with an AI chatbot kind of a rush because the chatbot is fast, it knows everything, it can be very logical, and they find that far more gratifying than interacting with a person. Addiction is often accompanied by an enabler. And in the case of token-maxing AI-pilled people who are for companies, the company itself can be an enabler. So the executive suite may decide that AI is their big advantage, that if they really lean into AI, they'll be able to mop the floor with their competition, or they'll be able to lay people off and save a lot of money, or they'll be able to, in some way or another, satisfy their shareholders. So they will quadruple their AI budget year over year. And even these higher budgets just get completely obliterated in the rush of AI addiction among their employee ranks. Uber, for example, the CTO of Uber told the information that Claude Code usage alone has already burned through the company's full 2026 AI budget in the first few months of the year. Indeed, the company that is the sort of helps people with their career, I think that's the Indeed they're talking about. They predict that their 2026 AI bills will be 4 times higher than 2025. The Wonderful World of Disney said that a single employee reportedly invoked Claude 460,000 times over a little over a week, like 9 days, consuming 234.2 million tokens, probably because it was an agent caught in a loop. I don't know what kind of Mickey Mouse organization would allow that to happen. Meta has an internal Claudonomics leaderboard, and they tracked 60 trillion tokens across 85,000 employees in 30 days before being shut down 48 hours after this information leaked. Swan AI, a 4-person startup, bragged that their Anthropic bill was $113,000. So if you are investing in that startup, you might want to invest elsewhere. So this is a problem in the world. I'm sure it's also happening in nonprofits. It's probably happening in academia. It's probably happening in government circles. There's something about AI that makes people a little bit cuckoo and makes them freak out and want to do things that provide that rush. Business Insider magazine interviewed some founders who found out that they are imposing minimum token quotas. In other words, they're requiring employees to spend at least a certain amount of money on tokens, lest they be flagged as low leverage employees. Of course, this is somewhat ridiculous. And these companies that are doing this kind of gamification of AI use by having token leaderboards. It's no surprise that Meta's doing this. Meta's a company that's just rife with, any sort of inauthentic, unethical trend that they notice other people starting, they jump on it and copy it. It's just, I guess, part of the culture or part of Mark Zuckerberg's personality or something like that. Of course, when I talk about these leaderboards, this isn't people finding their own way to addiction. This is companies sort of pushing employees to overuse AI or to use it to a certain amount, to use AI more, basically. And no doubt they're essentially triggering addiction in some of their employees, those who might be prone to AI addiction. It's like a company requiring employees to drink a certain amount of scotch every day. Some of those employees are going to become alcoholics. We can look forward to all kinds of fun things that come out of this sort of corporate pushing of AI on employees. One of them will be that one of these companies is going to miss their earnings, and the blame will be put on the overexpenditure on AI tokens. We can also expect to see a trend of AI FinOps, where companies are actually selling token governance dashboards. I think this is a trend that will come and then immediately go. Token maxing, I think, will be considered a sort of fad, an example of our time in the future, i.e. 6 months from now. We'll look back on this era, this part of the year, and think that, this is one of the crazy things that happened at this time. But all of this corporate sort of pushing of AI does not really concern me, because I think that this is a trend. It's a fad within corporate America that came and now it's going to go away. But the problem of AI addiction among power users, let's call it power user AI addiction, I think this is going to be a growing problem, and it's never going to stop growing. Anytime you have an addictive thing like gambling, for example, or video game addiction, I think is potentially a real thing. Certainly chemical addictions like cigarette smoking, alcohol addiction, drug addiction, heroin addiction. These don't really go away because of human nature, right? Human beings just love the dopamine rush. And to the extent that AI can provide dopamine rushes, we're going to see people seriously addicted. The other problem is that, the availability of AI use will only grow. So I've been predicting for a long time the rise of AI glasses. Right now, we have a few. The only one that's broken through really is Meta AI glasses or Meta Display. What is it? No, I'm sorry. Let me get the names right. The second generation that became super popular from Meta was called Ray-Ban Meta glasses, and then the next one was called Meta Ray-Ban Display glasses. Those ones with a little screen in the lens. Those are the ones we know best. Half a dozen, I guess you could call them significant products in this category. And by the end of the year, certainly by the holiday gift buying season, we're going to see 30 or 40, including from major brands like Google, who will be partnering with other companies, Samsung, Xiaomi, all the usual suspects will have them. At some point, Apple will have them. These glasses will provide all-day access to voice-based AI stuff. And so the people who are prone to AI addiction will be doing vibe coding from their glasses. They'll be walking around the street, mumbling to themselves like crazy people, but in fact, they're going to be creating applications. And so, or they're going to be, just obsessed with information, nonstop, just grilling AI for more and more information, or, going back and forth. And the most addicted will just, seriously at some point have to take off the glasses and go into rehab. But I think this is going to be a serious problem. The places where you'll be able, think about all the different places where you'll be able to actually indulge your AI addiction include, wearing glasses, using your phone, talking into your earbuds, inside virtual reality, while using augmented reality, your smart speaker in your house, the smart speaker in your car, people will be able to do AI tasks and vibe coding all the time. And it'll get really crazy when we have small language models that can satisfy the impulses of an AI addict that fit in offline devices. So even while you're hiking on the Appalachian Trail, you'll be able to do vibe coding as you're walking along. And of course, there's a concerning feedback loop associated with AI chatbots. The people who use AI chatbots for everything tend to have their brains turned into oatmeal by the use of all these chatbots. And it's not just that people become less intelligent or less able to conduct their own critical thinking, but it's the fact that you can get an instant answer to your questions means that you lose patience for finding out things in ways that take longer. And so the more you use chatbots, the more you need to use chatbots, because you basically find yourself in a situation where you can't even imagine, reading a book or, reading a magazine or looking something up in a paper dictionary, even an online dictionary, or doing, research or any of that stuff, because your expectations for how long it should take for your craving of information just rise to the stratosphere as AI is constantly satisfying this craving. And so I think this could become such a big problem that basically implies that people will become cyborgs. And what is a cyborg? A cyborg is a human being that has man-made body parts that have a microprocessor in them. So, for example, if you follow that definition, if you have a super high-tech hearing aid, for example, you're a cyborg. Okay, that's not exactly what I'm talking about, because that's, you're just boosting hearing. It's an old-fashioned kind of application for a device that sits on your body somewhere. What I'm talking about is supplementing your cognition, certainly prosthetic memory, where you're wearing something all the time, to the point where the definition of where you stop and the device begins is a little blurry, or the degree to which you consider yourself you plus the AI device that you're wearing, the glasses, the smartwatch, the thing that goes over your ear, the implant, whatever it is. We've all read the cyberpunk science fiction from the late 20th century. Cyborgs are coming, and I think that the way we get cyborgs is not that resistance is futile, for sure, but it's basically this loop where people start relying on AI chatbots for their cognition. They offload or outsource their critical thinking to a chatbot. They rely on their AI-based personal assistant to remember things for them, so they don't have to remember things the way they used to. And they enter into a feedback loop where the more you use it, the more you need to use it. And the more you need to use it, the more you use it. And so you become entirely dependent on the devices that facilitate this feedback loop, and you wake up one morning and you realize you're a cyborg. And so this is definitely coming, and there will be all kinds of voices in the media saying, "Hey, what's wrong with that?" Right? Certainly there are people saying that already. Many of those voices are on Reddit in the AI forums. If you don't believe that there's a groundswell of acceptance and enthusiasm for radical dependence on AI for things, for example, for relationships, for cognition, for everything, I invite you to go to the AI subreddits on Reddit, because it's amazing how enthusiastic some of the people there are. And who knows? Maybe those people are actually chatbots themselves. Probably not in many cases, but they're definitely using chatbots for their responses. And so this is a concerning thing. I think if you know me and know my opinions about things, I tend to trust human nature, and I think people should live natural lives. They should have relationships with other people. They should do their own thinking. I believe people should read books, for example, and retain the capacity to read books, which is harder than just saying read books. We're seeing that faculty eroding in many people who just couldn't imagine reading a whole book. And so again, if you know me, I'm completely against allowing oneself to fall that far. And certainly this whole idea of AI addiction is a problematic step in the direction of people living, I think, vastly less satisfying lives. So if you suffer from AI addiction, or somebody that you love suffers from AI addiction, I believe that the general approach to coping with this is to rebuild your own capacity to function without it, even if you intend to keep using AI for different uses. One of these ways to do that is to separate recreational use from use that you do for your work. Right. So it's a good idea, if you're addicted, to jettison the recreational uses and use it only when you have to. And for recreational things, or just, answering simple questions, or, making apps for vibe coding and that sort of thing, the key is friction, because the slippery slope of getting into AI addiction is the lack of friction to accomplish things. And that's the thing that makes people feel the rush of dopamine. That's the thing that makes people addicted, the lack of friction. It's thrilling and exciting to be able to accomplish things and get information without friction. So my advice for sort of detoxing from AI addiction is to add friction to your life. How do you do that? Well, one thing I would recommend is force yourself to read books. Make sure you set aside time every day to sit down and read a book for an hour. If you can't handle an hour, then read it for half an hour and build yourself up. This actually works, and I recommend it. Deprive yourself. Don't allow yourself to have any electronics around you. Don't have your phone on. Turn your phone off. Just sort of isolate yourself from the internet and sit down with a paper book and read it. Read every single word and read that book cover to cover, as long as it takes, and then pick up another and read another book. So that's one thing that you can do. Another is the 20-minute rule. The 20-minute rule is, whenever you feel the impulse to get something fast from AI, try to get that thing without AI. So if you're looking for information, right, give yourself 20 minutes of trying to get that information without AI. If you don't get it in 20 minutes, then open ChatGPT or whatever. When you write things, whether it's an email or a text or a research paper or a blog post, no matter what it is, never let AI write it for you. Write it yourself every time. And if you want to apply AI-based grammar checking, if you want to run it through AI to challenge your ideas, to suggest additional avenues, all that stuff is fine, but make sure that you write a complete first draft of whatever you're doing yourself. I highly, highly recommend this practice and this rule in your life. Seek out long-form articles. I recommend the New Yorker magazine, which has pretty long articles that are very well written and beautifully fact-checked. I recommend the Atlantic Monthly. There are lots and lots and lots of long-form publications. And by changing your media diet from little snippets of things or summaries summarized by AI, reading a long article by a specific person is, you'll find it very refreshing, because an article written by a specific person is basically a set of ideas from a person's point of view, whereas a sort of a article, if you will, written by AI is something from no one in particular's point of view. And it's going to be generic, and it's going to be sort of the average consensus of something. And that's boring. And so find excitement in the diversity of voices that you can find from long form writers. Get the fuck off of X and get onto Substack or Medium or Ghost or whatever you like, but find the reporters and the writers and the essayists and the editorialists who are writing things from a very, very particular point of view. And I say that, not to knock the New York Times or any of these newspapers, and I've already recommended magazines, but the really interesting thing about newsletters like Substack, where a lot of professionals and very skillful amateurs aggregate, is that this is a lot like magazine journalism oftentimes without the editors. So you get more diverse opinions and viewpoints and writing styles because people are pursuing their own thing. And when lots and lots and lots and lots of very smart people are each pursuing their own thing, you get this great diversity. And the degree to which your brain will expand instead of shrink from the use of AI, your brain will expand because of this, if for nothing else, the diversity, but also the ideas being expressed. Another piece of advice that I enjoy myself is learn some skills in terms of prompting AI. So when you do use AI, chatbots, for example, role prompt the heck out of them. So in other words, tell it its role, tell it its job, tell it your expectations. So for example, if you want to know something and intend to go back and forth with it a little bit, this is one of the things that AI addicts do. They go back and forth with the AI, having this sort of back and forth conversation. Don't let it be a sycophant, because that's problematic, and it can be for many people AI addiction prone, right? So have a canned prompt, find an app or a browser extension or some way to easily put in your prompts before you actually ask the question, that order the chatbot to not be sycophantic, to not be agreeable with you, to prioritize factual information and high quality sources, and basically don't let it do those things that AI chatbots have been engineered to do to make you addicted. The chatbot companies are not they're not having meetings probably, who knows, maybe OpenAI is, but they're not having meetings saying, how can we make people addicted? What they're trying to do is, how can we make people love our chatbot so that they use ours and not the other guy's chatbots? And they do that with sycophancy. They do that with, trying to make the chatbot more human. And those are some of the addictive qualities of AI chatbots. So you can override those with good prompting. Do good prompting when you use chatbots. And of course, another great idea is to take breaks from using AI. Don't use AI every Saturday. And if that's too Jewish for you, then don't use AI some other day, or once a month, or, not on the weekends, or whatever. Just basically take a Sabbath, take a sabbatical, take a break from using AI at all. Just basically go cold turkey from AI for certain amounts of time on a regular basis and see how you feel. It's also another great way to know if you in fact are addicted, because if you feel really anxious and you find it really, really difficult to go an entire day without interacting with AI, you might have a problem. So look into that. And finally, another idea is to do something else. If you or somebody you know is only happy when they're using an AI chatbot, then they should seek out other things that make them happy. And I don't know what that is. It depends on where people are and what their circumstances are. But to find happiness in other activities, and if you cannot, then you've got a serious problem, because I really don't think that obsessing over AI is healthy. First of all, physically, you're sitting there or whatever, you're indoors. People need to get outdoors. They need to be social with other people, and they need to talk about things other than AI. So, and also be aware of you AI addicts, read the room. I've seen so many conversations where there's a group of people, it's 7 or 8, 9, 10 people, and 2 or 3 people get into this thing about AI conversation. Everybody else is staring at the ceiling or looking at their watch, and it's boring for everybody else. These endless conversations about all the wonderful things that people have done with AI. So that's my advice. And I expect to be thinking a lot more about this, reading a lot more about this, and I expect to read a lot more research about this area of human cognition. Of course, all the caveats remain. It's not really an addiction. It's more like a sort of somewhere between. It's like a video game addiction, right? It's not really an addiction, but it can be a problem. And the definitions around what's an addiction, what's a mental illness, and stuff, all have something to do with how functional is your life. Are you happy in your life? Are you, is it interfering with your relationships and your work and all that kind of stuff? So, it's going to become a bigger problem. I'm going to be writing a lot about it, and I'll probably have much better advice in the future. So stay tuned for all of that. In the meantime, this has been the Michael Elgin Goes Solo edition of the Super Intelligent Podcast. One hopes that Emily will be back next time, and I expect she will. And so in the meantime, please, if you like this podcast, give us 5 stars and a nice review, and share it with other people, and let me know how you like this podcast. Our email address is superintelligentpodcast@gmail.com. Our website is superintelligentpodcast.com. But of course, you can find us on all the usual places where you'll find podcasts, such as Apple Podcasts. You'll find us on Overcast. You'll find us on Substack. I said Substack. You'll find us on Spotify. And we'd love to hear from you. Send us an email. Tell us anything you'd like to tell us about the podcast, what you like, what you don't like, what you'd like to hear, what you wouldn't like to hear. And tell us about your experience with yourself or people in your life who've experienced some of these symptoms of AI addiction. So thank you again. As I said, this is the Super Intelligent Podcast, and we will see you next time.